We'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Foley,
Present.
trustee Lappin.
Here.
Clerk Palovich here. Treasurer Ellery Summers. Here. Trustee Kroll,
Excused absence.
trustee Reiner,
Here.
supervisor Skibby.
Here. Okay, moving forward to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, substitutions to the agenda as presented? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. We have a motion and support on the table. Support-
Motion
Motion
by-
by Foley, support by Ellery Summers. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Adoption has been approved. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If you have any public comment, please stand to the podium and state your name for the minutes. And please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Mr. Partika?
Hi, Gary Partika, and we've got a couple, I know you can't answer questions, but one of the things I am concerned about is evidently we're basically operating the fire department through mutual aid. And I find that pretty upsetting that we don't have a fire department in some, I see that's on the agenda. Hopefully there's some good news. The other thing that I do want to address is blight. And I've been up here many times before talking about it. I've gone through more than one administration complaining about the same properties. And I'm talking 10 years. If anybody's interested, I have pictures of properties that we turned in under when Marie was township supervisor. And I find it upsetting that basically nothing is happening. It's the same properties. They've been, we keep hearing, okay, we need to wait till we get a new blight ordinance. We need to wait till we get a new zoning ordinance. And nothing is happening. Absolutely nothing. You're working on one major problem. There's problems throughout this community that are not being addressed. I'm basically disappointed in this board. The lack of foresight. You were basically voted in to settle the water sewer issue. I keep hearing it's close. As a citizen, we've been hearing that for a long time. So I'm very disappointed. If anybody wants to see what I'm talking about, I'd be happy to share the photos that we shared when Marie was here, and they were considered blight during that time, and they're still considered blight, and nothing is happening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Partika. Is there anybody else with public comment? Online as well, is there anybody that has public comment? Seeing nobody online and having nobody else in person, we'll move forward to the payment of the bills. Is there a motion to make payment of the bills?
Move to pay the bills.
We have a motion on the table. Is there support?
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to the minutes of July 26, 2021, which is a regularly scheduled meeting. Are there any corrections or comments to the minutes? Or if none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 26, 2021.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of July 26, 2021, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Moving towards correspondence, we have one hearing notice from Alpena Power Company, and then three pieces of correspondence from the Road Commission. One item may be in C, may be coming eventually to this board. So I'll keep you posted there in regards to that conversation that the Road Commission is currently having with the Turnbull Mill public hearing. But I will entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence as presented.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the table to receive and file. Is there support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of receiving and filing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Correspondence has been received and filed. Old business, fire department update. I guess you and I can probably.
Yeah, we conducted interviews last week. We interviewed 5 people for the chief position. We had 5 good candidates.
We're still in that process. Yes.
We have no recommendation as of yet, but we do have 5 good candidates that we interviewed.
So there is always that potential that we may have to potentially call a special meeting, given the considerations of the timeline that's presented. So if we do have to call a special meeting, that would be its sole business item would be for that matter.
I'll be on vacation next week.
Okay, yes, trustee Paul.
Where's our report that we're gonna potentially have from?
I was going to mention that. I was contacted by Mr. Schultz last night in regards, he was in hopes that he would have submitted by the end of business day today his report. And I said, thank you very much. He was not going to be able to be in attendance today. And so I think he's looking to be at our next regularly scheduled meeting to answer any questions over that document and kind of start that discussion.
Do we have any idea? Excuse me. I see we're fully operational. It looks like a lot of the paid on call have come forward. And any other movement on other full-time staff?
No, actually, at the last board meeting, I think it was the determination of the board to find administrative
All right.
prior to
And let the new
expanding.
chief hire his people.
Yep.
So yes, end of the day, we should get, or hopefully by tomorrow at least, Mr. Schultz report. Last I'd heard, it's in the neighborhood of 30 pages long.
Oh,
And we can have that discussion at a later date when we have the
Take 'em on
document.
vacation.
Yeah, there you go. It's fun reading in Vegas. So yes, as Michelle had stated, we've conducted the first round of interviews. We have a really good pool of talented individuals. And we're still hammering through that. So if we get to a point where we feel confident in making a recommendation, then like I said, that would probably be a point where we may be exploring the opportunity of having a special meeting. Anything else that I missed on the update? Really? That's pretty much been our sole focus is.
And getting a chief hired as soon as possible.
Correct.
No,
Yes,
that's-
trustee just spoke.
Anything from the committee or whoever's working on the fire department in reference to Gary Partika's comment that we're basically operating as a mutual aid? Any comments on that?
I guess the only comment to that is,
Are we?
we are at bare bones staff. we've always operated under the guise of mutual aid. It's just at this point in time, our mutual aid numbers are obviously quite low. It's
I
it's
guess I
not
don't understand
conducive.
what you mean by our mutual aid numbers are quite low.
Well, mutual means that in its truest form, mutual aid is that we have the ability to reciprocate
Oh,
equally. And so when we only have one or two, potentially three people showing up, because I would actually, at this point, somewhat disagree with the reemergence of paid on call thus far. But I think that there is that potential that they're kind
I
of,
guess I just said that because of the bills that we paid, there were several higher than usual payrolls for those paid on call.
yeah, I think they had training, they had a couple other things that, so
Okay.
that's maybe a little bit of an uptick in terms of that number. But yeah, there's the sad reality that there is unfortunately some truth to Mr. Partika's statement, is that we are on a bare bones department, and we are leaning heavily on mutual aid wherever we can. That's really, I guess, all I could really comment to on that. So are there any other questions for Michelle or I in regards to the fire department update?
Just say one more thing. My concern and always has been is the safety of our citizens. So I just hope that we are being taken care of properly as far as the fire department.
I know that that's my sole concern as well.
That's not my sole concern. I have also concerned about the safety of our relatively new staff. In the case of what level of training they have to deal with some, serious emergencies that might put them in peril as well. I agree with Norm's point, but I also say there's another point to be concerned about. And I highly recommend we get new hires to someplace where they can not only get trained, but get some experience. That's going to cost us some money, but I think we have to get them to a place where they have more than 6 to 10 structure fires a year, so they can get on the job experience and get some training through that experience. It's one thing to be trained on how to go into a fire. It's another thing to be able to do it. And you can only find that out when you have to do it. And you need some good backup and some good leadership to, and also some good experience. I mean, experience comes with being around experienced people. And right now, as far as I know, we only have one experienced person on full-time staff. So that's all I have.
Noted, trustee Reiner. Any other discussion about the fire department update? If not, moving forward to the next item of old business, which was the proposed adoption of ordinance 147 that was introduced at our previous meeting and will be addressed here today at this meeting. Mr. Golden.
This is the final step in the process to amend the blight ordinance. The notice of the introduction at your last meeting was published and notified the public that you'd be considering adopting this ordinance at today's meeting. If you do adopt it through a motion, then I will have it published with the Alpena News, and it becomes effective when it's published, which will probably be in a couple days or so, according to their schedule. Then it'll be placed on the township website too, and I'll give Michelle, I'll fill it in and email it to Michelle so she can get it to Lynn and get it on the website.
And yes, trustee Polly.
When will this become effective?
As soon as it's published,
Okay.
which would be later this week.
We were talking earlier, something about 30 days.
That's for general law townships, because charter township, you've gone through these preliminary steps to get to this point, so they give you a break as far as the effective date.
Nice.
Okay, so ours will start, once it's in the paper,
Yep.
you can go after it.
Beautiful.
Because that isn't what I understood before.
No, I was actually, that was gonna be my question as well. It was a little bit of a miscommunication.
I may have
on the time
misspoke
gap
at the
with
last step. I'm used to the 30 days because almost all my municipalities are general law townships, so it's probably my fault.
Oh, no worries. So at this point, we just need a motion, correct?
Motion, a second?
I'll
Okay,
make that motion.
we have a motion on the table to approve ordinance 147, which is the amendment to the blight ordinance, and we also have a support on the table from trustee Reinhardt. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Reinhardt,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Moving forward to new business, I think between Laura and Tim, you could probably wrap this part of the agenda.
We can take.
Yeah, I don't mind. I think it'd be probably just most helpful if I just read the resolution. So the public can see what we're doing and it's pretty self-explanatory because it refers to the underlying ordinance. Whereas the Charter Township of Alpena Board of Trustees adopted ordinance number 139, the Charter Township of Alpena Sanitary Sewer and Water Ordinance during its July 22nd, 2019 regular meeting. And whereas section 18.11 of the Sanitary Sewer and Water Ordinance includes the following provision pertaining to the late payment of sewer and water bills. Penalty charges. The Township Board may by resolution provide for a minimum rate for the sewage collection or water distribution services and may further provide that a penalty shall be added if accounts are not paid on or before the 15th day of the month in which they become due. Moving on, whereas the Board of Trustees desires to impose a penalty charge for delinquent accounts in accordance with section 18.11 of the Sanitary Sewer and Water Ordinance in order to encourage the timely payment of water and sewer bills and to help defray the additional expense incurred by the township in connection with delinquent accounts. Now therefore be it resolved that a penalty charge equal to 10% of the outstanding amount owed shall be added to each water and or sewer bill that has not been paid on or before the 15th day of the month in which the bill becomes due. Be it further resolved that further changes to water and sewer rates and charges shall be accomplished through the adoption of further resolutions of the Township Board of Trustees. This was an issue Laura brought to our attention based on her day-to-day dealings with delinquent accounts. And so we went back to the underlying sewer and water ordinance and saw that the process calls for a resolution. So we are opposing this resolution for the board's consideration.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution brought before us to the scope of having the ability to establish a penalty charge for delinquent water and sewer accounts.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion on the table to move forward with the resolution establishing penalty charges for delinquent water and sewer. Is there support?
I'll support it.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Under the penalty phase, what happens after that? So if the bill isn't paid by the 15th and the 10% penalty is imposed, at what point do we shut off? It doesn't talk about shutting off the water. Is there another ordinance language?
Yeah,
that
the
addresses that?
ordinance addresses that in
Okay.
detail. Yeah, it's the Gary Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah.
CQAE
That was a
and
pretty
ordinance
big,
139. There's a process.
Okay,
pretty comprehensive document. So, and it deals with liens also.
all right, so then, so after the 15th of the month, it's assessed, but when, and then there's a regular procedure at that point. So the only missing component was this penalty phase.
Penalty.
Okay, all right, very good.
And currently, we would charge a penalty, so the bill goes out, it's due by the 15th,
Yep,
but we bill quarterly. So we wouldn't, for 3 more months, I mean, we wouldn't put that, I mean, if it's not paid by the 15th, the penalty goes on one time.
all right.
So then we're 3 months down the road before we can collect the money. So this will go on monthly.
So does that mean that if the person missed it on the 15th of the month, that the water effectively wouldn't be shut off until 90 days later?
That's, I'm not sure exactly how the ordinance reads, but there would, I mean, currently we send the bill out. If it's not paid by the 15th, we send out delinquent notices. And then if they're, I'm not sure the exact time frame. If they're not paid, then they get a shut off notice. And then they have like 3 days to come in to pay to not have it shut off.
Okay, all right.
Did this come to light because of COVID when we could not shut off people's water?
Yeah, that's
And
part
they
of
would get the
this.
penalty once,
Right.
and then the rest of the time they were no penalties added.
Right,
So now this will add it every month if we ever get into like a COVID situation again where we can't. turn
Okay,
people off.
every month?
yes.
So it
this
doesn't
is-
really say that though.
Yes, it does. It has on there,
10%.
under
Oh,
a resolution, a minimum rate of the sewer collection water
Oh,
distribution.
okay.
The
That
out-
is to
the outstanding
All right.
amount owed too, so that amount's
All right.
gonna increase
Okay.
if
Right.
they let it.
So they get a penalty on a penalty.
Yes.
Okay,
So less than 10 months, it's double the bill.
yeah. And then after that, I presume there's a collection process somewhere along the line.
Well, if it-
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah. and liens.
right,
Well,
Does it go on
liens and
people's
on
taxes?
taxes,
Okay.
that's
Right.
also a
Okay.
mechanism.
All
that
right,
we can-
all right. That was the only thing that was missing there. It seemed like, all right, what's the next step? But you've answered it. Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, we've been more aggressive, I mean, trying to get people to pay, you know, with the delinquent notices and with the shut off notices on the door hangers and getting people to come in and pay.
yeah.
You know, and and we always offer, you know, if someone's having a hard time, that they can go to the Salvation Army or Department of Human Services or
NEMSCA or-
NEMSCA to get help. And there's another site too that came out over COVID that we have
Wow.
on
Yeah, there's actually a webinar tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow,
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah,
3 to 4.
Thursday, the LIHWP
Mhm.
QYZ webinar. That really discusses a new program, because I had actually, when COVID was still going on, brought to the board the potential of the utilization of one of the CARES Act packages. That through that process, and actually being part of all the initial webinars, when you have two of the top people in charge of a program kind of yelling at each other because of not knowing what the program actually is, we opted out, because if we would have taken that route, we would not have been afforded the ability to put that onto taxes. So
Mm.
any municipality that opted in now has removed their ability to recoup those monies through the taxes. So I think it was a very wise decision by this board not to move forward with that program, but there is a newer iteration of that similar vein of program that I'll be learning, and anybody can sign up for Thursday.
We're
It'll be
signed up, man. Kelly and Rhonda, we're all signed up for it.
Beautiful. So we will look at what the state's new projections are and what mechanisms that they're affording our general public. So that will be potentially something we can discuss at our subsequent board meeting. We have roll call. Any other discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes,
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. That concludes our new business. This is the second opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody that would like to address the board online or in person.
Thank you.
Gary Partika. I'm still concerned about the blighted properties, and I'd like to be able to show, eventually, I'd like to be able to show the pictures that I've presented to Mr. Skibby. I've presented it to our past building inspector. And like I'm saying, nothing transpires. I can show you cars that have been sitting in junk cars sitting on US 23 for years. There's one that's been parked down at a business location within 12 inches of a fire hydrant for over a year, unlicensed, and nothing happens. We keep passing ordinances. How many ordinances has this board passed? And nothing has changed. I called you, Mr. Skibby, a couple of weeks ago to try to set up a meeting to discuss this. Nothing is happening. It's frustrating. You know, I took a ride through Rogers City yesterday. What a neat little town. You don't see junk vehicles all over. I am disappointed in this board. I mean, what is it going to take to start cleaning this area up? I just don't understand how. Take a ride down Brook Street. The improvement is half of the wrecker is gone. Shame on this board.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Partika. Is there anyone online or anybody in person? Seeing no other public comments, is there any other discussion amongst the board?
Any more discussion with, or tried to learn any more information on some of the monies that are available that seem to be that seem to be earmarked for things that we still don't quite understand what they're earmarked for from a federal standpoint?
Yeah, I can give we're still dealing with interim rules as to the ARPA monies, which is actually through the CLF RF, which is another wonderful acronym for.
I can't even keep track of all those acronyms.
Yeah. So we did, after our last meeting, the township successfully submitted all paperwork. So we should be anticipating, have we actually gotten that 50% disbursement? Yeah, through Sigma. We should, in the next week or two, get 50% of that disbursement. And I believe the total allotment for the Charter Township of Alpena was $915,536. So 50% of that should be within this month. And then I think they'll probably do very similar to what they did with the payroll reimbursement plan, is probably hire a third party to administer auditing of the same program, same as they did with the payroll reimbursement, to figure out how much monies that were misallocated to make a whole number at the end of the day. I'm always leery with these programs because there are no final rules. So the good news with the ARPA monies is as long as they're earmarked by 2024, you have until 2026 to disperse those funds, as long as they are committed by 2024.
And that's where the consultant comes in to help us to figure out what we can spend it on?
No, we are, and I've been learning what we can spend it on.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's the Department of Treasury has, I would implore, maybe what I can do is put together a body of all the links for data and get that out to the board. And that way you can start reading some of the gratuitous, voluminous language from the state government in terms of the Department of Treasury. It's a phenomenal read. I would love to share that with you guys. So I can do that. But I've already kind of CC'd Jim Cranslin, because any municipality that is exploring the utilization of these monies, I think it behooves them to bring in their CPA right up front. That way our GLs and every other disbursement and our plans, once we decide what a plan is for those monies, how it needs to be tracked. And so I just, before I already sent that memo to Mr. Cranslin. And he's well aware of, and he's very similar to a lot of other municipalities. He's helping. So yes, Trustee
Has
Gold.
Mr. Gold had been approached on this, just to, if he needs any eyeballs on it?
I haven't bombarded him with that yet. I think Mr. Golden's expertise will probably come into play when we start making decisions of what the expectations are for those monies and if it meets the criteria.
You could ask Jim Cranslin too.
Have you had any
What's for
success
Mr.
with other
Cranslin?
municipalities or not?
Strictly
early.
Lamp and
So,
Cranslin.
doesn't come up for
Strictly
me yet.
Lamp and Cranslin.
So
Interesting.
no, but there is more than ample information out there. It's just highlighted with an asterisk stating that these are interim rules. Nor the federal government nor the state government has finalized the plan for these monies.
Huh.
Very good question. I'm glad you asked it because our last meeting was on the 26th. And I submitted everything to the Department of Treasury that subsequent morning. So, and that was the deadline. So our foot is in the door to acquire those funds.
And I
Trustee
think,
Len.
I think your suggestion is right on. I think the county did the same thing just recently. So if I recall the last meeting I went to. And so, yeah, I think that kind of expertise or at least guidance is going to be necessary to. So these monies is the question now. These monies will not be part of current budget, obviously, and they will be set aside until we decide that we can use them and will use them, right?
Yes, and actually it would be my recommendation to this board, and what I've learned thus far with the interim rules is to, these monies get dispersed through the Sigma segment. That's how I believe we get our constitutional and our revenue sharing. Because some other state payments come through the Sigma platform. I typically don't use that, but that's
We
more
use it now.
Laura's bailiwick. My recommendation would be put these monies in a whatever savings account at a low percentage. Because the accrual of interest, if 4 years downstream, this board decides that thanks, no thanks is the best option for these monies. That accrued interest, I believe at 1.5% over 4 years could actually raise $55,000, somewhere right in that ballpark.
Interest rates are not good. right now.
Yeah, but it's still like 1.5, isn't it, or no?
That's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
But anyways, the reason I bring that up is because since we're talking about interim rules, there is no interim rule that says that you can't keep the interest that's accrued from those monies.
That was my understanding.
So,
So why would we put it then? I understand that we don't want to put it in anything risky, but why wouldn't we want to put it in something that could get a higher yield?
well, and that's depending on what the rules
Yeah, yeah.
and the game.
All
plan.
right.
So I mean, we can always push that envelope, and
Yeah.
if they change the rules, then we play by those rules.
All right.
I think that any time inherently that you look at money markets that incur a higher level of risk, as you well know, you also have the flip side of that, and
Oh,
you
sure.
can lose.
Yeah.
So I think that the state government would probably frown on us making that investment.
I know of a good deal in East Africa.
So Keewaydin or something like that would be a bad thing.
Hey, sometimes jacks are black. And split them like aces. Anyways, is there any other discussion that's good for the board? If not, like I had mentioned, there may be the opportunity for us to call a special meeting. We're working.
Are people available next week? Because I won't be available till after 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
Okay.
If we have a special meeting next week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to accommodate
You're gone all week.
everybody's schedule, but we're in the meantime doing
We have a
everything.
meeting on Thursday, right?
Yeah, yes.
I
Yes.
just got notice from one of the citizens online that they were blocked, they couldn't join or comment. Is there something that can be done?
Larry Clark.
Yes. And
So-
I wasn't going to interrupt, but yes, it looks like he has something to say. and he is this one.
Yes, unmute him, but yeah, please just let me know when. Mr. Clark, can you hear us?
You're muted.
We can't hear you, Larry. Oh, now you're muted.
Can you unmute him, Haley?
He muted himself. Yeah, you have to unmute yourself, Larry.
Can't hear you, buddy.
Do you have a microphone on your computer, Larry? Could you use hand signals for yes or no onto the microphone? Okay, you have a microphone.
Technical.
Could you actually just call Larry?
I
If he
can do
just
that.
texted you
I can do that.
and put it on speaker. We're gonna give you a call, Larry. Russ is calling you right now.
Where do you want to put it?
Just in front of us. Microphone so public can. Okay, we can hear you now somewhat.
I'm getting a message says the host is not allowing unmute.
You're on muted, Larry.
Okay, so here we go. I have a couple of comments. First of all, I sent everybody a email regarding a comment that Nathan made in the paper the other day with regard to the South Bay's decision to put our projects on hold until we get active local government participation. One of the comment that Mr. Skibby made was that we have not made a formal presentation regarding legacy costs. In this era of COVID, we elected to present those legacy cost recommendations via email twice, actually. As it turns out, there's zero to just a couple $100 in legacy costs on the existing bike pass. So kind of feel like that's probably not a big issue moving forward with the bike pass extension. Although some provision needs to be made for boardwalks, which might be more expensive, of course, to maintain than asphalt bike paths. So that's point number one I wanted to make. Secondly, I appreciate the board addressing blight ordinances and making them stronger as we go. But once again, as Gary was mentioning, the issue with blight is not with the ordinance, it's with the enforcement. There's almost no enforcement of our blight ordinances. Gary and we have come to the board many times over 10 years, and just sporadic compliance or asking about reducing blight, holding people accountable is not going to get the job done. We need to clean up our community to make it more inviting, and particularly the South End is looking a little shaggy again in places. And we would appreciate enforcement of our existing blight ordinances. Seriously recommend that we consider a blight enforcement officer like other communities around us have. They can be self-sustaining, as we know, through proceeds from tickets or the building department. And it seems like a good way to get the job done, given people's busy schedules. Last thing is, I wonder if there's any questions about our position with South Bay. Can you please email me? And the last thing is, in looking forward as a charter township, I would ask you to please get past firefighting, putting out fires, looking forward at how to develop our community. We are an important area around the city of Alpena. The city of Alpena is growing in leaps and bounds, and we need to play catch up with things like possibly millage of 0.125 mils for parks and recreation, law enforcement for the continuing escalating drug and lawlessness issues that we face in our township. So thanks for your time and thanks for putting me on.
No worries. Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Clark.
Since it's come up while we're in discussion phase here, we've heard it from Tim, why the ordinance for blight was changed and why the enforcement mechanisms that were there were cumbersome, but not everyone apparently has heard that explanation. Could we call on Tim to just explain how we've changed the enforcement part to make it easier to do?
Sure. The prior version gave the person the opportunity to have an informal hearing before a ticket could be issued, in addition to written notice. And this is the only community I've ever seen that process. And that came about, we had a committee that helped form the blight ordinance. And so that was suggested there, and then we saw it in real time. And normally, if we get to the point where somebody's ignored my warning letter and the zoning administrator's warning letter, they're not going to request a formal hearing or an informal hearing because they're just not responding. So we've always given the person ample opportunity in order to save the township, cost of prosecution. So by the time we get to the point where a ticket's required, a ticket is really required. So their change now provide a written warning. We always would do it as a matter of course. I'm going to write to them and say, get ready, you're going to court, and then we're free to issue the ticket and get us into the district court process. Which then the person can either admit the violation, or if they deny it, then we get to a formal hearing before the district court judge who can issue an
So
injunction.
the informal hearing was an administrative hearing, and it took a lot of extra time, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right. And as was pointed out, time that people don't have, it's not necessarily.
Yeah, and that was been, I think, the frustration through these past 4+ years is, you get 3/4 of the way through this timeline and hoping that people become compliant. And sometimes they actually become compliant. And that was the other nice thing is now with this added mechanism, instead of having to start the entire process, which isn't a short process, we would have to have started it all over again. Now we have the ability, as we learned today, is shortly after it's published, this amendment becomes active. So now we can go through those initial phases, site review, discussion, give them the opportunity, as I've had this discussion hundreds of times of this is what you need to do to become compliant. Now we have the ability in a very much shorter period of time.
I think it's important to make clear that the part of this process includes, if it gets to the point where there is a formal hearing, then a court order. And that court order is, you believe, for all time, so that we don't have to start the process over. Is that right, Tim?
Yep, yeah, and this afternoon, I've got the one I was talking about before for another township where the court order was issued 9 years ago and still being enforced, and I'm gonna get it renewed, so it'll.
Because part of what we've seen, I think, is that there's an abatement of the nuisance for a period of time, and then it comes back. And then you start all over again, where now if there's a court order, my understanding is we don't have to do.
You're right, Russ, and I prepare the order for the judge's signature, and they've always complied that it states clean up the property and keep it clean.
Yep. So then we can start on the second event of the same people doing the same things or similar things. We can start at the end of the process instead of way at the beginning.
Is that a motion for show cause to have them held in contempt?
Thank you.
So follow up to that, those in which we have dealt with in the past, I can think of a couple of Pine Street or Pine Road as being one. That is a start over again.
Historically, that's what I think has really exacerbated the frustration of every single resident on Pine Road is that this residence had actually become
Right,
compliant.
Right.
And then just snowballed. And so we had no mechanism. We had to start over.
Right, so will we have to, on that particular example, for example, we will have to
Yeah,
start.
yes,
over.
and that's okay, because it's going to be a 10-day
Right,
It's just a 10-day
10-day
period.
notice served by regular mail.
Right.
Say you got 10 days or you can be ticketed.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so-
this is,
So we don't even have to on that one go through the verbal
No.
process because it's already happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nathan's made contact with the guy.
yes. A few times.
all right. Good.
Yeah, no, this is a wonderful addition. This is the blight ordinance. I think at least I wanted from day one, but we had to figure out what the shortcomings were of the last one.
All right.
But moving forward, we now have an accelerated timeline that we can hopefully have leverage to get compliance.
Excellent.
Yes. Any other discussion for the good of the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there support?
Support.
That was trustee Lappin on the support. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose the same. Meeting adjourned at 11:44. Thank you very much.